Hi everyone, and hi Elena. So I'm really welcoming my dearest friend, and she's a super professional. So I'll introduce myself first, and then we'll go to Elena and let her introduce herself. So I'm Dr. Yuli Eve. I'm a practicing dentist in Boston. I do have education in teaching, management, and science like biology, chemistry, and physics. I've created my YouTube channel to reach out lots of people and help them out from my perspective, and then also bring different guests that will spread the word and help with their professional life and experiences. So here's my friend Elena. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elena, Yulia's friend. And also, I have been a technical recruiter for the past 10 years. And as of recent, I'm also a career coach, fully open to share my experiences, my tips and tricks for anyone who is looking for a job at this moment.
Amazing. So today the topic is about the interview, but before you even go into interviewing process, like looking for the job or the position in residency or in school, you have to make a step forward and decide to do that. I want to say a few words about imposter syndrome. So, which is like loosely defined as doubting your abilities and feeling like a fraud. And I think it is such a popular syndrome among highly educated people. So I'll go back and I'll just say like in a few words, like simple words. What does it mean? It's when you have an education, but you feel like you're not enough. You're not confident. Like you're always seeking for something else. Like, oh, before I apply for this job, or before I go there, like I have to take an additional class, or I have to take an additional course. Oh, that's a great job. But no, not yet. I'm not for that. It's not for me. So you tend to choose to stay at your older job, or you just tend to choose something which is like on a lower or totally different from your profession. So I just recently read the studies that people who step out of your comfort zone and they leave their work that they spent 10 years or whatever it is, they tend to get paid more and they are more successful in your career. So in order for us to step out of the comfort zone, if we cannot do it on our own, we have coaches like Elena to help us out to transition and prepare us for the next process. Looking for the job, interviewing. Actually, like even before preparing for the interview, you can always like hire a coach and just talk and prepare yourself for this step. Okay, I'm ready to transition. I'm ready for my next step. And here's Elena. I'll give her a word. What do you think about like all this?
Certainly, whether we meet a new person or we are interviewing for a new job, in that room is just us and the interviewer. We don't have another person who can tell us how do we come across. So we don't have a sounding board. And sometimes after an interview, you ask for feedback, but that feedback is vague and too general because companies choose not to deliver that feedback because of liability and other things. And so we always leave the interview defeated and we ask ourselves, what did I do wrong? And the only person who can truly honestly tell you how you come across in your communication is a career coach, because they do have your best interest at heart, and they will be a little bit harsh, and that's okay because it's a safe space, and they will show you what your blind spots are and how you come across, and they'll give you very concrete advice. Now, in terms of being an imposter syndrome, I don't think it's the end of the world. Anyone who has any self-awareness has experienced being an imposter, right? And that is because they want to be better and they compare themselves to other people. Now, sometimes we compare ourselves to a person with admiration and with support. And sometimes we compare ourselves to the same person and it makes us feel less, right? It's not the same. So that's where the imposter syndrome comes in. So it's okay to try to be the best version of yourself and better than yesterday. It's okay to admire others, but you can't let it go to that extreme when you become an imposter and you feel like it. Now, how to get over it, in my opinion, is you have to identify what's the source, where is it coming from? And so when I prepare for an interview, number one, I tell everybody, I tell all of my friends, I'm preparing for an interview. It's going to be with this one company, and this is what I will do. And I'm so excited. And the reason why I'm telling them is because I know that they'll say something along the lines, Elena, you got this. You are the best. You can do this. And then I feel better about myself. And I know they don't think I'm the best, and that's okay. The fact that they are telling me I'm the best makes me feel okay and gives me enough confidence to carry on. I will not call my ex who will tell me he never loved me. I will not call somebody who will make me feel less. No, I will put those people for another time. I'm only going to talk to those people who make me feel good about myself and hopefully overcome that imposter syndrome that I have in an interview.
Yeah, that's very interesting because like you are speaking right now about like calling people, and what I tend to do sometimes I do watch movies like that boost me up, like old movie, Legally Blonde, right? It's like inspire you
Yeah.
how not to be afraid to be you, how to choose, because you will find the right place for you, the right fit, and you will bring all your best abilities to go and move forward.
Yeah. I know maybe I'm weird, but sometimes I leave a movie and I feel like the superhero, that I have like superpower abilities and it gives me that boost. I know it's impossible, that I am not that superhero, but it makes me feel like that. And that's the feeling that you should have in an interview. Not that, fake it till you make it and fake confidence. No, watch something that gives you that natural boost, and that you can come across as somebody who is happy with themselves and glowing and positive.
Yeah, that's great. So then the next step, which is like very interesting for me, about preparing your application before you apply. So here I have a question for you. Like we will list whatever it is, like from our abilities, but I always think it's really nice to gloss it over, like to make it like 15-20% better than you are. Like for instance, if let's take me as an example. Like I volunteered once, for instance, at some event, and then before I do my application, I would say I'll just skip it. It's like was only once. It's like not. But then like throughout the life, I changed it. I have done it, and I experienced that for the moment. So I just put that, and I said, yes, I did my work volunteering and that and that and that and that. And I just include whatever details are, and I make it a little bit more prettier, a little bit more like I said, glossing over, because you're presenting yourself, like you're selling yourself, and there are like a bunch of candidates for like specific position that are brilliant. So you want to stand out somehow and bring like just a little bit gloss over. What are your thoughts on that?
If we hired an amazing author who could write a book about every single thing that we have done and said and achieved from day one on this earth, right? That book would be very, very big. Reading that book would take years, right? We only have 30 minutes in an interview. So you really have to look at your achievements and really select those that reflect who you are, but also are in line with your aspirations, right? So you have a smaller book right now, you have a small agenda that you'll bring to this interview. Now we have to be careful there as well. We can't just say, here, this is me, I've done all of these things, because what if they're only looking for 3 or 4, and then you can come across as being a little too much, right? So one thing to do in the very beginning of an interview as a candidate, just slightly take over that interview. And when the interviewer is asking, before we start talking about your experience, do you have any questions for me? Yes, you say yes. You do have questions for them. You want to know as much as you can about the company, the role, what are they hoping for, what are their expectations? And then you look at your book that you brought, right? Your virtual book. And then you're only selecting those pages that they mentioned, right? So you make a mental note of this is what they're looking for. And then when you answer your questions, you tailor them to what they have already shared with you that they're looking for. Because we can look at the website, we can make assumptions. Then we can look at the job description, we're making some assumptions. The best thing to find out what are they looking for is to ask, what are you looking for? In the very beginning of the interview. I think sometimes candidates make the mistake of leaving that question until the end, but it's too late. You can't say, oh, that's what you're looking for. Oh, that's me, because I forgot to tell you XYZ. That's already too late.
So true. And they're already ready to move on to the next interviewer. So
Oh, they're done. The interview is over.
Yeah.
Yeah. We always feel like there's supposed to be a structure, right? Hello, some pleasantries, let's talk about the weather. And then the interviewer asking the candidate question. Okay, they do. If that happens, then you're giving your answers without knowing what they're looking for. So it's kind of aiming in the dark. Okay, let's say, have you ever gone to a blind date? Okay.
Yes.
So going on that blind date, how much research have you done on the person ahead of time? Zero? Okay. Because I'll find everything. I need to know, do they like a classy woman, or do they like a more, I don't know, artsy person, or more conservative, this and that? And I'll adjust as much as possible to them. I will not change who I am, my identity, my fundamental values, but I'll just put that classy hat on, So because now I know what they're looking for. But when we go in an interview, we have no idea what this person is looking for. So it's good to ask in the very beginning. And based on their answer, that's how you tailor your answers to their questions as well.
Yeah, it's actually very interesting. So while you were speaking, I was applying it to myself since I'm a dentist. I started going back and remembering all my interviews for the dental office position. And it is very true. If initially I would ask the question, what are you looking for? Then I can bring up it from my application and always not just list it, but give a little scenario or what I've done for that. For instance, if it's certain procedures that they're looking for the dentist to do, then I would also have my portfolio with the photos of my work. So I can present that and say, hey, this is my passion. But you don't say oh, this is what you want and this is what I have. No, it's no. So, that, and you just play around very nicely. Very classy, oh, that's my passion. And then I would pull up my portfolio with my work, and then I would say, oh, by the way, last year I had such an amazing tea course and that I took and blah 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 blah, and this is what I've learned, and I use it with my patients and my practice. So yeah, definitely great advice for sure. Yeah, so what is I think before, as you said earlier, before about the date or whatever, you want to learn. So you want to learn the max about the company that you will be interviewing with. You would look for their mission, their vision, how is it in their team. And I think it is really beneficial, and especially United States, to try to find the connections with the company. Maybe ask your friends, maybe someone who can put the word for you. What do you think about that, and how to do it professionally, not overstepping boundaries?
That's a good question. So just like going on a date, you don't just go on a date, right? You decide whether or not you want to go out with this person. So before I even apply for a company, I'll do a little bit of research. I'll look at the company. Is it too big? Will I feel like a tiny little element without any footprint and without any upward mobility? Is it too small? Will I be wearing way too many hats? Will I be working too many hours? So first you do that research. Do you think the company size is good for me? Does it look like their technological stack aligns with what I use? I'll look at, there's websites when you can look at their reviews and see, can I work and will I be happy in that sort of culture? So once you've done that research and then you are true to yourself that I would be happy in that company, then the next part is to actually find out, what kind of questions they ask in an interview. And there's so many platforms. I can't say it right now because that would probably be advertising, but you can find it. There's a platform where you can find literally interview questions, and you can just go over, and you don't know for sure if they'll ask those questions precisely, but it's good practice, right? So if they have 20 of them, find a quiet space, pretend you are in an interview right now, and you go over every single question. Obviously, follow the STAR approach even when you practice, and that's your preparation. Now, even before that, if you find out that you have an acquaintance there or a friend, it doesn't hurt to have that conversation, because most of the time, that company probably has a referral bonus. So for example, if I said, Julia, I noticed that you worked at company ABC, or you still work there, and they are hiring for a accountant or a finance analyst or something like that, do you mind taking my resume and actually adding me as a referral? Most companies have a great applicant tracking system where that adding somebody takes seconds, and it doesn't hurt you, right? If you can vouch for me, then I have to do all the work as a candidate. I have to go through all of those interviews and get the offer. You, as the person who referred me, all you have to do is refer me and just sit back and cross your fingers, right? And then in the end, I get the job and you get a referral bonus. It's a win-win. So yes, before you apply, just double check and see if you know somebody who works there, because it will benefit both of you if this actually comes to fruition and you end up working at that company.
I didn't know about the referral bonus. Whoa.
Yeah, it's actually a nice thing. Yeah. Not to say that all companies have it. You can find out though if they do. And even if not, let's say if there's no referral bonus, it's still a good feeling when, as an employee, you can refer somebody who is a good person for a job and that person gets hired, right? You still feel good about it and it feels rewarding, even if there's no monetary value added to it.
That's amazing. So I'll say a few words about like my because I'm a dentist.
Yeah.
So I always do the research about the offices, and I know like exactly what I want and where I can feel myself the best. Even like I remember before the interview, the night before the interview, I would drive to the dental practice. Yes, it would be closed, but I'll just see like the area. I would see how the outside of the office looks like, and I see how I feel myself. Like I'll ask my body, how do I feel about that? Will this place like make me happy? Because for me, my mission and vision, like you have to be happy in a place in order to be the most productive and successful, especially like working with the people, whatever it is. Yeah. So speaking about like then the interview, like you definitely, like as you said, like you need to know your application really well, and you need to play around. It's like the puzzle, right? What they want, and you kind of like then give it to them. That's good. Then let's then move forward for the next question about like how would you like to look like for the interview regarding the dress code and regarding the makeup and the hair. But plus here I want to speak about the Zoom interview and how important it is today, like nowadays. And I'm very grateful for you because before I didn't have much experience interviewing for the Zoom. So when I had my sessions with you prior to my interview, it's actually prepared me so well just to feel comfortable being on a screen and speaking through through the screen. And I think like whoever out there like listening to this video, if you do not have an experience, definitely get a coach, definitely have a few sessions, because it's a totally different platform. It's totally different like way of interviewing, and it's a skill that you can learn just in a few sessions and feel more comfortable. And yeah, so let's go and like go back to like how we dress, how we present ourselves, like with the makeup, hair.
Yeah. Right. I think a lot of candidates put a little too much thought into it, and they're looking to impress with the way they are dressed. And I can tell you that you and that person, yeah, I mean, you have a great sense of style, so I'm sure they are impressed, right? At the same time,
it's not always a good thing though.
Right. I mean, here, if I don't remember ever, leaving an interview and going back to my coworker and say, you won't believe what this person was wearing in an interview, and that being a good thing, right? It's probably not that great. So what you want is for the person interviewing you to remember you and be impressed by you, not by what you wear, but by how you behaved yourself, by what you said, by the fact that in their mind, you are the perfect match to what they're looking for. That's it. That's your mission. Your mission is for them to have this like hole in the puzzle, and you are that perfect match. Oh my God, this is perfect, right? That's what you're looking for. And if you think about, okay, so what does that mean? What do I wear? Think about the meeting the grandmother of your person you're dating, and you're meeting her for the very first time. You want to be conservative and not too much, not too flashy, right? Yeah, I'm always thinking about neutral colors, less patterns, no, not too much makeup, just a little bit to make you feel good, maybe smaller earrings. What I'm wearing right now is too much for an interview, I'm thinking, right? The smaller studs, and I would probably not even wear this. I don't know what people think about a triangle, but some people can misunderstand, and I don't want to give them any reasons for bias. So here we go. I'm just going to toss it out. No triangle for me, right? So just less is more, and have them remember you literally by what's in fact. If they leave the interview room and somebody comes to them and says, Yulia, you just interviewed this dentist, what were they wearing? And if the answer is, I have no idea, that means they were wearing the right thing.
Love it. Can you please also like teach our audience about like how you prepared me for the Zoom interview, like regarding the lighting? You would say like smile with your eyes.
Yeah, I mean, you have to look at the person in front of you, and let's say that there's nothing you like about them. Oh, you're like, oh, this is just not something pretty to look at all. Still look at them and find a tiny, tiny element that would make you fall in love with them in that moment, so that you have that genuine, so that you don't have to think, oh, how am I a good communicator? Look them in the eye, tilt your head, and nod, right? Like sometimes you read those articles and you tell you to do those things and you look like a robot and you say yes or something like that. In fact, if you look at a person and you genuinely like what you're seeing, your body will lean in a little bit, your head will tilt over, you'll have that smizing that we talked about, right? And so let yourself fall in love with that person for just one 30-minute block, so that you are warmer to them, and then your body language will follow. In terms of setting up your room, look, I think right now this light is too bright. So this would not be an ideal setup. I think I would test this and I would say, okay, my background is too dark, my light is a little bit too much, but just quick check. Alrighty, so I have the plant here. I think that's okay. I have a candle here. I don't know, maybe they don't like this brand, so let's just take it away. So I'm thinking, I don't want to give the interviewer any reason to judge me for something that has nothing to do with the job. So I'll not show them earrings or makeup or brand or a necklace or anything surrounds me that will tease their brain into judging me by any means. I want to make it easy for them to like me, right? So that's my goal when I set up my camera and when I set up my and obviously you can only see me from here. So if it's on Zoom, wear something comfortable, really, really comfortable, so that you feel at ease and you can really like pay attention to what they say and craft your answer to them.
Very well. So what if the interview would be held in a company and you have like people in a room, right? So and here's like the first 5-10 minutes, and you feel like a little bit nervous and you feel like you cannot like process information really well. Is that okay for the person who's being interviewed to say, I'm a little bit nervous? And just because for some people, it's like to admit that, it makes them feel a little bit comfortable. So what do you think about that?
I can't speak for every person. I know that if I admit it, all of a sudden I feel more like that. So if I say, I am nervous, and especially if I say, I am sorry, I'm nervous, if I'm apologetic about it, that's it for me. It's going down from there. I'll feel more apologetic and I'll feel more nervous. If it helps you, when I say you, if it helps a candidate to say that, to admit that, let's hope that the person on the other end is not a judgmental person. Again, let's not give them something to judge us more. In fact, if you want to say something, and let's say, for example, they ask a question, and you're like, what? I don't even know how to process this. I don't understand the question. Then you can cool and calmly collectively say, can you please elaborate on your question? Right? In other words, you're thinking, I have no idea what they just said. So I need to process this one more time. But then maybe they will rephrase the question. Oh, yeah, okay, what I mean is this. And they'll ask the question again. And hopefully that second time it will sink in and you'll be able. But if you need time to actually, if you understand the question, but you don't know how to answer and you need time to think about the answer, then it's okay to say, I would like to give you a meaningful and thought out answer. So I'll think about it for 2 seconds. Alrighty, here's what I think. In a situation like this, yada, 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 yada. So it's okay. I would say, don't admit that I am nervous, but more so admit that you want to give them a thought out answer. And that's why you're taking the extra 2 seconds to think about it. That way it makes you look better versus nervous. It makes you look more thoughtful.
Okay, so then we'll like transition into the questions like really slowly. Then my follow-up would be like, what if they ask you the question and you don't have an answer? And that's like you're losing it like in the moment. And then you cannot find the right answer right away. Like, what do you do? Like, how do you approach that? Like, for instance, like imagine the situation right now, you interview in person for the position. Like what behavior would ace the situation in your eyes?
Is the situation that I don't understand the question, or I understand the question, but I'm too embarrassed about the answer? Is the question, Elena, have you ever worked with, let's say, Python as a programming language? And I know the answer is no. Or when they say, Elena, have you worked with Python? I don't even know what Python is. In which case do you think is
okay? No? I don't know. Can I give you an example of mine?
Yeah, of course, sure. Go ahead.
So I just recently had an interview, and then the very first question, they just like kind of like put that shock on me. Their first question, not like easy one. Not like tell us about yourself. The very first question, they said to me, we're going to give you right now 2 minutes. And in this 2 minutes, you will teach us something not related to dentistry.
Not related to dentistry. Okay.
So, and I was like, whoa, very interesting question. Like I have never ever expected that. So, and I was like, oh, give me just a moment to come up with an idea. So, and they repeated 2 minutes. I'm your student, whatever it is, like life student, teach us something that not related to dentistry.
Okay. So here, I have a feeling that we are stuck by these deadlines, right? When they say 2 minutes, we feel like this is it. However, you can buy a little bit more time. You can say, well, tell me, who am I teaching it to? Who is my audience? Is this a 5-year-old? Is this a 15-year-old teenager? Or is this an adult? Is this somebody who has learning difficulties, right? So while you're asking that, and they might say, okay, let's just say it's a 20-year-old, right? Then while they're answering, you're buying time. And now you have more than 2 minutes because the clock hasn't started yet. And then you're picturing that person in front of you. And that's a good time to actually highlight something that you know really, really well. Right? So every time you have a question from the interviewer, you have to think about your hidden agenda. Remember, we had that book, right? Like those things that are amazing about us. Don't look in that book and think, what page can I take from here? Or what is something that I do extremely well? And I can pull this page and present it. And by answering the question, you earn points there. But also you're highlighting something that you know. And it doesn't have to be within 2 minutes because you're asking some questions in advance. So you're buying yourself some time. And 2 minutes is actually a long time if you think about it. one commercial on TV right now is what, 10 seconds? So 1 minute, that's 6 commercials. 2 minutes, that's 12 commercials. I can tell you that's a long time. So I think they're being generous. At the same time, as if you feel stuck, it just means that it's not clear and you might have to ask more probing questions.
Yeah, I think like the question like really well, but that was for me like a little bit shocking. So what I've noticed like in my past interviews right now, they are trying to change the style of the interview. So they're like asking more like provocative questions to see how you can react. But I think it's like depends like on the position again, like whatever company, whatever it is. So my interview was for the position where you have to be like very fast acting in difficult situations. So that was like their purpose, and I absolutely loved it. Like being a teacher myself, I absolutely loved my last interview, how they built it, how it's like it's opening up myself. Like I was intrigued, like interested in the process. It was just like, whoa, what's next? Yeah. So then let's talk about the negative questions. I have never gave that definition to the questions until I met you. So there are like some negative questions that they ask, and I didn't see them as a negative until I met you. So can you please speak about that, because you are excellent. That is 100% sure. And how to like turn negative into like positive.
Yeah, every time throughout the interview, let's say the interview is 30 minutes or 45 minutes or an hour, sometimes it's an hour and a half. It's your duty to leave a long-lasting positive impression. So it's your not just your responsibility, but it's good if you as a candidate maintain a positive atmosphere, right? So in the moment they ask a question that I think is necessary sometimes, why are you looking elsewhere, right? Why are you leaving your job? Or tell me about a time you failed, or tell me about a time you had a conflict with a coworker. It just changes that positive atmosphere into a slightly cloudy one, right? It's not that pleasant, because it almost like warrants a negative answer. Oh, I'm leaving this company because it's a terrible place to work. Or yeah, I had a conflict with a coworker because he was very difficult to work with, and so on. So because you need to maintain this positive atmosphere, the moment they introduce a negative question, it is key that with the first sentence that you say, that sentence is positive. You can still answer the question, but you have to change that atmosphere. It was positive, they made it negative. Let's make it positive again, because it's better. So, for example, tell me about a time you had to work with difficult people, with a difficult person. Have we ever worked with difficult people? Yes, I'm pretty sure. I don't know. Unless you only worked for like 2 years and you're so lucky, there's always this one person who just gives you pause, or you just don't want to deal with, right? So the question is, tell me about a time you worked with a difficult person. Well, how then to answer that question where the first sentence is positive? You can say, you know what, I was lucky enough to work with people who are, for the most part, great people. But then you want to answer the question, and then you say, what happened to me a few times was that with these people, we got into difficult situations. So the person is good. It's just that we found ourselves to be in difficult situations. And why? Because it was a process that was new for both of us. They interpreted it a certain way. I interpreted it a different way. It was some change in maybe in management, and I was happy about them. They were not happy about it, right? So you start with a positive that, look, I was happy. I was lucky enough to always work with great people. Sometimes also with great people, we fall into difficult situations. So I'll tell you a time when me and my coworker misinterpreted the process. And where we started is where we both agreed that there's this deadline that we both have to hit. And then we started with what we both agree on, and then we worked our way back to our disagreements and slowly made small changes. And then we got to a common sense. So key is the moment you have a negative question, tell me why you're leaving your job. The first sentence that you say is how amazing your company is. And so how grateful you are for the time that you were there. At the same time, this company here is fantastic. And so you take the focus from the negative to the positive to the future and how you want to work here, right? So you see how you flip it. So you either flip it or you change it into a positive, but also keep in mind, you have to answer the question. So as long as you transform it from a negative to a positive and answer the question at the same time, you should be good to go. I think. Or at least it works for me and the candidates that I interview.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I have an idea to say that about the great company. So I was talking about my previous jobs and job, like currently during my interview, and I said like I have like an amazing job, like truly and honest. I have amazing team. Like I have amazing patients. So then they transition and ask me like, well, if you're so happy with your job, like why do you want to change it? And that's like where you speak more about the growth, the opportunities. And yes, will be like really sad to leave, but that's my next logical step to get. Yeah, so yeah, please.
I try to avoid but.
Okay, good.
I try to throw it out like forever. What I would say, and I love your thinking, I would say I work for an amazing company. At the same time, what you have to offer is something I can't pass. You have an amazing opportunity. You work with great tools. You are serving I think at that time, you were interviewing for a company as working with underserved community or something like that, right? So take the focus from the past or what will be the past to the future, where you want to go. And that's how you, without saying but, if you say, I like my company, but kind of cancels out what you just said. Say, I love my company. It's a good place to work. At the same time, what you have to offer, I just can't. It's an opportunity. It's the next logical step. And that's why we're here interviewing and talking. So
love it. Any other like words that we should avoid during the interview? Like, but what else? Like anything comes to your mind?
It might be difficult to do with the word no or don't. However, if you think about maintaining that positive air, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of saying, I don't know how to read, for example, right? If they say, Elena, can you read? Instead of saying, yeah, I don't know how to read because, I've never been given the opportunity, but I'm such a good learner and I promise. And no, I don't know it now, but I will in the future. So there's no and don't and but. It just sounds, ugh. But if you say, if you know in your head that you just don't know, then you say, I know less about reading than I wish I knew.
Beautiful. I love it. Yes.
It's clear to them that you don't know how to read. At the same time, it's clear to them that you want to read, and it sounds a little bit more positive, and you still maintain that positive air that you need to maintain to leave a long-lasting positive impression with this person you're talking to.
Yes, I absolutely love it. I think like this advice can be applied, especially like when you're newly graduated and you're looking into the job, because during your like school, like you like gain all the knowledge that you need. You get into internships and you like, for instance, if it's dental or medical school, you do have your rotations. So you are well prepared, like you passed your boards and you are qualified for the job. So that would be an amazing advice to say.
Other things that are difficult to eliminate are fillers. For example, like, or oh, you know what I mean? Or ums are so difficult. And I think the best way to really to eliminate them in an interview is to eliminate them in real life too. When you talk to your friends, when you talk to your family, your spouse, your child, be more aware of it and try to eliminate the ums, because our brain is handling a lot during an interview. We do so much preparation ahead of time. We're trying to impress this brand new person. A lot is at stake. And in addition to that, you have to tell your brain to literally shut up every time it wants to say like and and I don't and no. And it's just too much for our brain. So to give it a break, we can start eliminating those fillers in real life, right? Outside an interview. And then when you're in front of that person, you don't have to think about it. You can then use your brain power to focus on other things.
Yeah, true. I'm just like thinking about all these words, like negative words and so much more. I also would add to this articulation,
Mm.
pronunciation, your voice. English is my second language, is yours. So for years, I worried about my pronunciation and how I would say and what I would say. I noticed that when I'm tired, I do not have proper articulation.
Yeah.
I do not pronounce the words really clear. And I think it's even like in Russian, like when I'm tired, like I cannot pronounce the words like perfectly and clearly and articulate, because in order to articulate, you need to be like refreshed, energized, pronounce all this like sounds. So what I do before the interview, I go to the gym, I do run, I do have a good breakfast, and then I speak, like I do different sounds. I take the pencil and I bite on a pencil, and then I just read out loud whatever I have like on internet or a book. And I just like for 5 minutes, I just read and I really, really articulate. And that like helps me to get into that vibe. What would be your recommendation? What would you before the interview to bring us uplifted
Mhm.
voice articulation?
Yeah, you're right. I'm struggling with this as well. One, English being my second language, and naturally, I have a little bit of a more closed mouth. I have to constantly think about, opening up my vowels and being more articulated. So it's certainly a struggle that I share with other people who are in an interview and feel the same. Now, you're absolutely right. All the preparation that you want to do for an interview, researching the company, rehearsing questions, thinking about what to wear, pulling 17 dresses or suits and go like, which one looks best and things like that, that should be done the day before the interview. On the day of the interview, you have to focus on feeling good. And so like you, when you go to the gym, let's say your goal on a daily basis is to run for 30 minutes. On the day of the interview, exceed that goal just by a little bit. Because when we exceed our goal, we get a natural like flame that gives us that confidence that we don't have to fake it anymore. It's there. We have that glow. We ran 5 minutes more. Not a big deal, but it is a big deal in terms of how we feel about it. So yeah, do something physical that makes you feel good. Indulge yourself in something that you don't eat every day. If you're on a diet, eat a little bit of sugar or something like that. Listen to music that is uplifting. Watch a YouTube video with a actress that inspires you. And most importantly, text somebody or call somebody, but only that person, the nicest friend you have, who's going to say, Yulia, you got this. You are the best of the best. You've gotten many jobs in the past, right? Okay, so you can do it. There's nothing unachievable and unattainable. Don't respond to people who are asking you about something that can wait after the interview. So everything that you do has to be uplifting. And the day of the interview, you can no longer rehearse questions or do that research or anything that is anxiety provoking or stress provoking. That's it. It should have been done the day before. And on the day of your interview, do exactly what you said, exercise and make sure that you feel good about yourself.
Good. I have one more question that just came up to my mind actually.
What is it?
It's about the negative and the positive. Like, tell us your positive sides or your negative sides, right? So I just recently had an interview, like a few of them actually, And I think right now, before you go into interview, you need to research that place that you're interviewing for
Yeah.
and pick those negative and positives based on that place. Play around. Every interview needs to be a very smart way. It's like your strategy. You are selling yourself, you're marketing yourself. And that's nothing is wrong. It's actually very beneficial to search and give it what they want to see and what they want to hear.
Yeah.
So those like negative or positives needs to be like a good fit for them. And plus, whenever you say negative, like you always need to have like a little story to tell like how you working currently on that, how you changing it. But Elena, please think about that. I think it's really important. That's the question that always comes.
Yeah, sometimes it sounds something along the lines, tell me about your weakness. Or other companies might say, what is your area of growth? Or what is your area of opportunity? In fact, I think if the question is posed, what is your weakness? And it sounds negative, we have our mission in mind. We need to flip it into a positive immediately. And then we say, oh, there's some areas of growth that I am aware of and I'm working on, and those are getting better at, right? So I think this is not a time to look back and remember that one mistake that one time I was coaching somebody in sales, the most honest person I've met on this earth. And that person, when I said, what is your weakness? He says, oh, and he went into this whole story about how he made a mistake and the company lost thousands of dollars. I'm like, no, wait, this is too much. Like, I feel like my sweat is pouring down. No, but it's just, you will scare them away. In fact, nobody needs to know, that happened. That happened. I'm sure you learned from it. I'm sure you paid already for what happened, right? So we don't need to go back there. But think about something that you want to get better at, and that's your area of opportunity. And in the moment, that is your weakness, and in the future, that will be your strength. But for now, you're still on this path of getting there. So that's something you can talk about. But one thing I tell all of my job seekers, please don't dig yourself into a hole. If you want to be truly honest about a huge mistake that you made, be honest with yourself. Make sure that you don't do that again, right? Learn from it. When it comes to an interview, it's not always warranted to go to that worst scenario that ever happened to you. So for sure, pick the mistake that you made that you want to highlight in an interview.
Yes, but I would personally, like from my experience, I would recommend to make an interview like you are the star of the interview. You present everything best of the best. Whoever company hires you, they want someone who is confident. And actually had a really nice conversation with a really successful man. He's like older. He's like close to his 90s. So he very successful. So he said, those people, like throughout his life, he said those people who step above show themselves more, like being a little bit louder, those who will succeed and go forward.
Yeah.
So he was speaking about his school years, and he was a swimmer, and he said sometimes you need to be more pushy, more than others. Step over and kind of become. So back to the interview, I think it's like really your time, like 30 minutes, an hour to shine. And we all do mistakes throughout the life, and that's the life, that's how it is. And we all have different stories behind. But this is our experience. This is experience that made us stronger, better in who we are today. So we don't speak about that, but we just bring up our strengths, our confidence, and I would say like joyful spirit, because people love to be around people who are positive,
for sure.
Relaxed and joyful. Yes.
One thing I would add is that when a candidate steps in on this like interview stage, right, and they're like, I'm the star and I'm everything and I'm the best and this and that, there is a small risk there that they can come across a little bit too arrogant, or there's a risk that even though they have high competence and lots of experience, they also have a high ego, and we all know that they will just be a nightmare to work with. So here's a strategy that I propose. Every time you want to highlight one of your achievements, make sure you, on this balance, you add maybe credit to somebody. For example, yes, I have obtained my master's in computer science. So here goes your ego. And you're like, So how do you tone it down? How do you come across as a non-arrogant person and say, luckily, so grateful for my company who paid my tuition? Or I have, worked so hard on this project. It was difficult, but I obtained it and I completed it and it was the best and I got so much feedback. Here's it goes. Your arrogancy scale just goes up. You have to bring it down by saying, I was so lucky that my teammates were so supportive in the times when I needed. So you give credit to somebody, you show how you are thankful for something, and that balances things out. And that way you highlight your achievement, but you don't come across as somebody who's just a little too much self-loathing. And that way they'll say, wow, we will work with a person who has high experience, high achievements, low ego, seems like a cool person to be around, seems like if we help them, they will be appreciative of it. Here, let's go. Here's an offer, more likely than if somebody just like, me, I do this, I do that.
I love it. Yeah. So everything like in moderation, like, yeah. Well, I think it's going to be my last question. So here's like the interview day. You passed the interview, you left the office, or you ended up your Zoom interview. What's next?
Are you asking about follow-up questions or things like that?
Yes, follow-up questions, follow-up like sweet email, when to do it, how to do that, what information do you include in that email?
Yeah. I think, well, one, you have to remember if there's any loose ties. For example, have you been asked in an interview to submit some sort of portfolio or to submit an example of your code, or it depends on what you're interviewing for. So if you have made any sort of promises, or if you have come to an agreement that you'll submit something after an interview, that should be top of mind, right? So you have to make sure that wherever you go, back home or back to your office, you find that time to submit that. Another thing that is also very important is to send a thank you note. Thank you so much for taking the time to interview me for this role. I was already interested in this role and in this company, but when you shared more about you fill in the blanks, it made me even more interested, and it made me even more convinced that I will do well here and I'll be happy here. The end.
Okay, so my other question, for instance, you didn't get the position, but there will be like another opening in this company coming soon, or like you have another offer of the interview from another company. Is that okay? Is it legal? Is it considered norm to email your interviewer and ask why you were not chosen for the position and what you can improve in your application in order to be considered for another round of interviews or for another position in the company?
This is a very good question. How a candidate responds to being rejected speaks volumes about them. Sometimes I call candidates over the phone and they're just like, oh, yeah, I didn't get this offer, but thank you so much. I wish you good luck, right? And you can feel their disappointment. And other candidates are like, oh, why didn't I get that role? Or what can I be done better? Please let me know. Or other candidates become really upset and they say, you know what? I didn't think the interview was fair and things like that. Now, I do remember how they react. I do remember how they react to the rejection, sometimes even more than I remember how they interviewed throughout the whole process. What you can say, what I recommend the candidate says is, thank you so much for even considering me for this role. And I really enjoyed the interview process. It was really nice. And you can really add something that you enjoyed about it. Now, you can certainly, and it is your right to ask for feedback. but most likely what you'll receive is something too vague or too general. That will not be useful to you. And so you put your efforts and you got nothing out of it, because most companies choose not to give reasons for declinations at all. One, because of liability, and two, because they don't know how it will be received. Imagine that you get a reason for declination and it comes from the person declining you. It just does not sit well with you. I have yet to remember a time when I told a candidate, look, you behave like this in an interview and that's why you're not getting an offer. And they said, oh, wow, okay, great. I'll take notes and this is what I'll change. It just doesn't happen. They feel rejected. And when you feel rejected, your brain does not process constructive criticism as well. So the best thing to do is really to work with a career coach and say, look, let's have a mock interview. Ask me questions. I'll give you my answers. You'll be my sounding board and you'll tell me how I come across. And that will be your feedback. That way you don't have to ask the company that you interviewed for, because most likely you'll just not get something useful.
Yes, I cannot agree enough with that. It's always, always, always to have like an amazing thing to have a career coach. Go back, review the questions, review your answers, prepare, go over again and again. And it's the best. Absolutely.
Right. Sometimes we think, oh, there's so much information online, then all I have to do is just read about how to interview. That's great. You'll probably be a good interviewer. At the same time, you will not know what you specifically are doing wrong, because this article is not about you. This article is about everybody. When you work with a career coach, they can identify your blind spots and they will tell you things that you probably never heard from anyone else. It will be eye-opening. It could be shocking. At the same time, it will be so useful, and you'll know for sure that now you will not say what you said in an interview. You'll not behave the same way. So there's only so much to earn from this.
Absolutely. And it's, I think, a great training for your subconscious mind. So as we know, like you go like once, twice, 3, 4, 5, and you already, when you get yourself into the real interview, like you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with your mock interview. And when you get to your subconscious mind is already feel relaxed. You kind of like already know your territory. So you feel more confident and more relaxed. So absolutely.
I remember having a career coach who was so good that he got in my head. When I was interviewing and somebody asked me a question, I had an answer that I wanted to share, but I could hear his voice saying, no, it's not a good answer. And I just made me like rethink a little bit. You don't have to be dishonest or not true to yourself. It's still your voice. It's still yourself. But at the same time, you just refrain from saying those things that might, put a barrier between you and the job of your dreams.
Yes. Well, I think we did an amazing, amazing video. I absolutely enjoyed it. It was like full of amazing information and the beautiful vibe from you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes.
I think it's important to end with the fact that passing an interview, it is something that everyone can achieve. It is doable. It is possible. And the good news is that every time you fail an interview, there's no record of it. So nobody knows. So you can always start over and you can always try one more time with another company and feel less of an imposter and refine your answers and get better at it.
Absolutely. Yes. Step out of your comfort zone. Even if you had that idea that it's time to change, ideas don't appear with no reason. There's a behind reason for that. Step out of your comfort zone, prepare yourself, make it as a task, as a class, prepare yourself and go forward. And my advice, if there is 9 no's, the 10 will be yes, and the 10th is going to be your best of the best. Throughout the life, like I learned one lesson: if one door is closing, the other one will be open, and it will be 100%. If it's no, give yourself some time to process it, let's say like a day or more, and then get excited because something is bigger and better for you is coming, and
Right.
it's 100%.
Absolutely. I agree with this. Yes.
Yeah. Well, let's say goodbyes then.
Goodbye. I'll see you soon again, I'm sure. Bye.